Good afternoon and good morning to everyone. My name is Alessia Rogai and I'm the Knowledge Management and Learning Coordinator of the project Bridging the Gap 2. Bridging the Gap is a project funded by the European Union and it's coordinated by FIAP, the International Ibero-American Foundation for Public Administration and Policies, in partnership with three European agencies for development cooperation, the Spanish, the Italian and the Austrian agency, and two international NGOs, the European Disability Forum and the International Disability and Development Consortium. Bridging the Gap is a targeted thematic response to the requirement to make development cooperation accessible to and inclusive of persons with disabilities, which is an obligation for European Union and member states as parial to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and which can have a significant impact in improving the social inclusion and promoting the rights of persons with disabilities. Bridging the Gap supports the mainstreaming of disability in international cooperation and the efforts of 5 partner countries in planning and implementing inclusive public policies and services. These 5 countries are Burkina Faso, Ecuador, Ethiopia, Paraguay, and Sudan. Today we reached finally the 10th session of this cycle of webinars organized by Bridging the Gap that from the beginning is trying to explore different topics involving also international experts. The webinars, as you know now well, are conducted in English, French, and Spanish in separate sessions. And you can find all the previous recordings on our website, on the Facebook and Twitter pages, and of course on our YouTube channel. You will find the links here in the chat box in a while. So, well, as I said, today is the 10th session it will be about advocacy programs. Disability advocacy is crucial for empowering persons with disability to exercise their human rights and avoid discrimination. Disability advocates work to ensure that the voice of the person with a disability is heard and is central to the decision making in all areas of life that affect them. Often national and international policies to support implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability are absent, inefficient, or not turning into practice. Implementing advocacy program implies influencing policy decision makers, those who can legislate, negotiate, or set budgets relating to formal public policies. Advocacy is central to delivering social change. This can be achieved through work in coalition with and strengthening the capacity of organizations and movements representing persons with disabilities. Advocacy is central to making power holders more effective, accountable, and responsive to persons with disabilities. If public authorities and other power holders are held accountable, persons with disability will have access to better quality services and other public goods. The session today will introduce you to the concept like how disability advocacy fits into a human rights framework, or different types of advocacy, legal frameworks and instruments, but also what knowledge and effective disability advocates uses, and also how to apply advocacy into practice. Some practical advices from our speaker. That today, to help us to explore this topic, we have with us Imed Ourtani, defender of the rights of persons with disabilities in Tunisia. Since the Tunisian revolution in 2011, he has planned, implemented, and evaluated several advocacy actions, most of which has been successful. These actions focus on legislative changes, such as the amendment on the electoral law and the Tunisian constitution. In addition, he has endured the guarantee political commitments at the national level, such as the signing of the Tunisian Charter of Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which was signed by the political parties represented by 187 deputies to the Assembly of the Parliament Representatives. In 2016, He got a master in laws and international comparative disability law and policy from the National University of Ireland. Then he was the first Bridge Training Fellow in the International Disability Alliance for Persons with Disabilities and Humanity and Inclusion. During his fellowship, Mr. Ourtani provided training, support, and coaching to several groups, including persons with disabilities, in their advocacy work in different parts of the world, such as Africa, Middle East, and Caribbean, and Europe. Imed also hosted and lectured already a Bridge Up session and the sixth session, Legislative for Disability Rights, but not the English session, but the French session. But anyway, if you speak French, I invite you to go to watch also the previous session of Mr. Ourtani. As you know, for those who lost it, I invite you to watch the session recordings on our YouTube channel, where you find also all the other sessions. I stop here. Thank you very much to Imed and to the audience. It's really a pleasure having you today again. I give you the floor in a while, but before starting, I would like to inform you that the webinar is live captioned and you can follow the transcription by clicking the link in the chat box that you already found there. So, I give you the floor to you, Imed, and thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Alicia. Thank you to all. Welcome, and I'm very happy to be here with you to share my experience, but also to discuss with you some key concepts about advocacy and how does it work for us as persons with disabilities. I will try during this presentation to be clear and also to have some examples to use from my experience, and also I'm really waiting for your questions to help the presentation. So next, the first thing is to understand or define what is an advocacy. So I will not try to read what is in the presentation, but summarize the key ideas in each presentation. So advocacy is an action or a couple of actions that target a positive change in a policy or a program or an attitude. It is also a collective work that to bring other people that believe in the same cause than us. It's also speaking up and draw attention to a problem that needs a solution or need to be changed by decision making. And finally, it's also to insert in the public debate a problem that to be solved by a positive change. Here, the key idea is the word positive change. Advocacy is really about a positive change. Not all the change requested, a political change, are positive. So we cannot call everything as an advocacy. For example, a company that lobby for to have an economic gain, we cannot call it advocacy. It's lobbying. So it's different from advocacy. Advocacy is really providing or targeting a positive change. Next. What are the key steps for a successful advocacy? As one of my key messages is, we don't have a magic recipe to success in advocacy, but there is some key steps that we need to follow to have more information and to have more possibility of success. The first step is analyze the situation. Where we are. So what is the problem that we are trying to solve? What is this problem exactly? What caused this problem? What are the different stakeholders that interact or have influence with this problem? What is our environment? Political environment, economic environment. Are we fine? Are we in political instability? All of this kind of idea we need to have as information. We need to analyze. Then we have also to think or to analyze the change options. okay, this is the problem, but do you have only one solution or many solutions to solve this problem? We need to find which one will fit our goal or what we expect. Define an advocacy goal and the strategy. So after we're thinking about what we need to change, we need to find also how we can make our advocacy and what is the strategy we will adopt to make this change. Then identify allies and opponent. In every change, you will find some people that will like your idea, but others will dislike your idea. They will not be agreeing with you or disagree with you because this change you're requesting will no fit in their interest. Identify key messages. Okay, before is also choose an advocacy tactic to use. What is your tactic? So do we go for example, for demonstration in the street, or do we go like making studies? Do we, invite scholars to write about your subject? All of this is also need to be defined by you, by your context. Identify key messages. You know the problem, you know the solution, but how you can find the words, the correct words that will be explaining the problem and explaining also the solution. If you speak, for example, very technical words, maybe you will lose the public opinion, because public opinion, for example, needs to have more, affective, more emotional words. So all of this kind of thing, you need to think about it and to define it. Also, you need to develop an advocacy plan. So all of this, you analyze your situation. Now you can start to make an advocacy plan. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, write the manifesto, for example, organize meetings, and all of this take time. So an advocacy is not about 1 week or 1 month. It can take years. For example, in Tunisia, for the one article in the Constitution, Article 48, we spent 4 years. 4 years to have only one article in the Constitution. It takes us time, but all of this need to be defined and scheduled. Sometimes, if you have a good schedule, if you have a good plan, you have the ability to be more flexible if something happens. Set a schedule and responsible. If you have like a plan and a schedule, you need also to define who is responsible for what. Sometimes we know the plan, we know the schedule, but people say, no, it's your duty, but it's not mine, and I forget to do. So if you set from the beginning who is responsible of what, it will be more clear, more efficient to achieve the goal. Certainly, you need to prepare a budget. Everything needs money, so you need to prepare a budget. Sometimes the budget can be found by mobilizing human resource volunteers and all of these kinds of things that can reduce the funds. So then mobilize your funds and start to make your strategy. Run, track, and evaluate the planning. So then after you will start, you can run and track. You need to track and evaluate where you are in your campaign for advocacy. You need to present your message through media, through public opinion, through public manifestation. You need to prepare and to present your message. Use the media. Media right now become very important. It's the fourth power, as you say. So you need to have some link, some entry point to the media. Manage meetings and write advocacy letters. So you need to have the most written papers, things that you can track, and you can have also materials you can share with other people, and we will see why. And then monitor and evaluate the action. Do we succeed? Then we need to create an indicator to see if we succeed to have our advocacy plan achieved or not. Next, First step is to define the objective of the advocacy. We will see how to do it, but before we need to define what do we mean by objective and cause. The cause to define. So the cause to define is the problem that need to be solved by a political action. As you know, many problems are not related to political action. Sometimes it is also about awareness raising. But here, to have more systematic change, we need to also work in political actions. Overall objective is the purpose, and I prefer to call it the dream. The dream is something very, the best, what we need to have as the best, achieving achievement. For example, have all social protection inclusive for persons with disabilities. Have all children with disabilities in regular school and scholarized. This is the dream. So, and then we have the specific objective. The specific objective is the target, is the direct change, is the cause of our campaign, is the cause of our advocacy. The specific objective is one part of the global objective. We need to work because most of DPOs are not very rich, so it's very hard to work to achieve directly the overall goal or objective. We need to work as a specific for the specific object step by step. And we will see how to do it. Next. So the first step, analyze the situation. To analyze the situation, you need to collect data. So the data will allow us to have what kind of data? First of all, we need to have quantitative and qualitative data, information that can support the advocacy campaign. Quantitative and qualitative means that we need to have numbers, data like money, budget, all that kind of very quantitative data and reliable data. But also qualitative data also means we need to have also some testimonies of people that suffer from the problem that we need to solve, because an advocacy campaign work in both sides. We target the intellectual part of decision makers, but also the effective emotional parts of decision makers. Why? Because emotional also part will allow us to have the sympathy of public opinion. We need to have both sides. Sometimes the public opinion will not be will not mobilize or will not sympathize with numbers and some kind of technical things. It's very important to have both sides of the data. The target, the political decision makers, who will target? Is it the parliament? Is it the local official? Is it the government official? Is it the minister? Who is the subject of our advocacy campaign? Who has the power to decide that the modification or the positive change need to be occur? Who have the last signature, I will say. Okay, so then we have ensure the support, build alliance with other actors, individuals or group who support our cause. For example, here, if you have like a very big star in your country, for example, if you have people like very known for their legal capacity or their capacity to influence the public opinion, a football player, for example. In Tunisia, we use this, for example, to have this constitution modification. We called someone who is very known, and all the media called him to give his opinion about the constitution. So when we wrote our proposal for one article, we called this person to write it. And then when we said, okay, our proposition is from this person, it was very well because he's a very known individual. He became our ally, and he went to media to defend our cause, and it works. And Just for the anecdote, he's actually running for the presidential. This person is running for the presidential of Tunisia. So we hope. Okay. Then we need to analyze also the context about the knowing what is the context of our country. Is it a political, economic, or social? What is the political, economic, and social context of our country? If we need, for example, to build or to increase the budget of one minister to have inclusion of person with disability, saying, for example, the Ministry of Education, do we have money? Where is the money from to have this inclusion? Is it maybe from the Ministry of Social Affairs? Are we other country in economic crisis? Are we in political crisis? Is there any election soon so that we can use and to have like some promises from political parties or political leaders? Also, find the channel of communication. What are the best channel television that works, very well known, or watched or heard? Is social media is very um, efficient in our country. For example, if you take as always example of Tunisia, we are not very good in Twitter, but we are very good in Instagram and Facebook. So we decided for our advocacy campaign to not use Twitter, but we focus more on Facebook and Instagram. So it become more efficient. Execution plan, implement a series of planned activities. So when we analyze our situation, what are the actions that can work? Is there, for example, an action, is it illegal? So we can, for example, if a demonstration in the street is illegal because the situation, so we need to find all of the situation to find out what are the action we need to plan. And then monitor and evaluate our action. Monitoring consists of gathering data to measure progress and achieving mobilization. So are we mobilizing enough people, enough organization, enough public opinion? And evaluation is about to see, are we achieving really achieving our cause or achieving that the positive change we want? Next, what is next? Okay, so how we can find a very good cause? Okay, it depends on different things. First of all, our vision and message. What is our vision about the problem? What is our message about the problem? The analysis of the cause. For example, we know the problem, but when we analyze the situation and we analyze the cause that we want to defend, we find it very, very hard to change. It does not mean that we need to make it like or to delay what we want to do, but maybe to think about going for another step before to defend this cause, because it's very, very hard to defend it or to change it. And then understanding the cause of the problem. If we don't master what is our subject, we cannot make a very successful advocacy plan. If we don't master, for example, what the CRPD says about inclusive education, what the CRPD says about social protection, what the special reporter says about social protection, what does it mean, social protection? As always, and I always say it, person with disability or our movement is very, very good to highlight the problem, but we lack capacity to highlight the solution. So we need to master both the problems by our data, but also the solution and where we can find the solution. We need to also master what are the legal obligations, what are the political obligations. For example, the legal obligation is from the CRPD or from our national law. The political obligation is from the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, is about the program of the political parties. So we need to master all of this kind of information. Next. Necessary condition to choose a good cause of an advocacy. A good cause of an advocacy must be precise and axial. We need to have a precise cause to defend, not to be like, maybe is this, the problem is this or this, and the solution maybe can be this or that. No, we need to be very, very precise. This problem is this thing, and the solution is this. And axial, it means the positive change we request will change a lot of other things. For example, if there is a decree and the law that are against the CRPD, do we focus on the decree or in the law? Axial means we need to focus in the law, because if we change the law, the decree will be easier to change. It's one of the examples, for example. Okay, another thing is provide opportunity to achieve easy success, link it to the cause, and ensure future success. Why I say this? Because, as I said, an advocacy campaign takes sometimes years. We need to have a plan that we can highlight easy success, the first step. For example, if one ministry went out and say, we adopt the charter, which is a political thing, so it's not an obligation, but he said it. He said it. So it's a very easy success and a first success, but will push other organization, people to have more motivation to continue the fight, to continue the advocacy campaign. I will take an example. When we created the Tunisian charter, we created 15 points for political parties to respect. One of them is the creation of a commission in the parliament about the rights of persons with disability. Two easy success we had in the first 2 months. One, the prime minister went out in the public speech and said, and we will make real the Tunisian Charter of the Rights of Persons with Disability. Wow, it was amazing, and people have more motivation. The second easy success, and the parliament was elected, and they created the fifth commission, which is about the rights of persons with disability. So people started to believe in our campaign, and we had more mobilization and more people. And the last one, and related, is the code that mobilize people that want and believe in our cause. So if you try to defend something which is okay, it's a right, but it's for a minority of people, like that are rich, like, for example, an example I always say is example to have a reduced flight ticket for international travel for persons with disability. Is this something that mobilizes people with disabilities? I don't think so. So maybe we need to focus in something that mobilizes more people. And then if you want to focus on this, it becomes after. So it's really important to choose the cause that you need to defend. Next. I'm hoping that I'm not going too fast and it's clear. So how to analyze a cause and transform it as an objective. I will take an example. Okay, the problem is most children with disability in age of schools are outside the regular schools. This is the problem. This problem is caused by different things. Okay, we need to analyze. We call that the trees of problem. The trees of problem. We have most children with disability are not oriented to schools. I will take one branch of the problem because we don't have the time to see all the problems. So this branch is I will take the other one. Most ordinary schools are not accommodated for children with disabilities. This also can be explained by most teachers are not trained about inclusive education. Also, another problem is education structure are not accessible. This also can be caused from another problem, or another idea is education materials are not adapted for children with disabilities. This is our problem, okay? This is the problem we analyze. This is the causes of our big problem. Now we will transform it as the solution. As you can find in the right side this is the trees of the solution or the trees of our objective. Our dream is to make most children with disabilities have access to ordinary schools. And our objective is also most primary schools are adapted for children with disabilities. Most teachers are trained for inclusive education. Education buildings are accessible, and then education material are accessible. Next. Okay, this is our trees of problem and trees of objective. Now our strategy, what we will choose to work on. Our campaign, our advocacy campaign. As you can see, there is a lot of other causes. The problem is very big, and there is a lot of causes that create this problem. But for an advocacy campaign, we will focus on only one branch of the street, which is our expected result. We will try to make an advocacy campaign to make most teachers are trained for inclusive education. So we need to go to the ministry. We need to find out there is any budget for training of teachers. Is there how the teacher training works? So all of this is our first campaign, advocacy campaign. Another one is education building are accessible. How does it work? Do we have a standard of accessibility in our country? Is there any budget for modification of schools? Is there any program, international cooperation program that works to improve the education system? So we need to have this. We will work only on this branch. Working in this branch, we will have an effect, which is the specific goal, the specific objective, sorry. The specific objective is education, schools are adapted for children with disability, and then we will have an inclusive education. And then we will influence, or we will help to achieve the global objective, and as I call it, the dream, which is most children with disabilities are in regular school. As you can see, there is a lot of problem, but our advocacy campaign will focus on only one branch because it can affect the overall objective. If you solve this branch, we can start another one. We can start for another objective, and then we will go, and it takes many times. So no one say it easy, but this is how it works to be more efficient. Next. Now we will go to collective data. So collection of data and analysis. Use of adequate quantitative and qualitative data to support each step of our advocacy. Is not only focusing on the first step or to analyze only the problem. We need to have data for each phase or each step of our advocacy campaign. Saying, for example, our first step is to go to the media. Okay, we need to have data. Who is responsible of this media? Who is the person that decides the program of this media? Then the second step is to go to the minister. Okay, how does it work? Who is the minister? What is his opinion about our subject? All of these kind of things, we need to have data about each step. Collecting data is a very important step. It allows us to master the subject. As I said, we need to be expert in the problem, but also expert in the solution. To elaborate the arguments, we need to have argument. Why we need this change? To determine the targeted part. Who decides? Who has the last word to say, okay, the change needs to be occurred? And then to convince. Sometimes argument is not always enough. We need to convince by having also people that speak up. If you have, for example, people with disability, intellectual disability, that have been denied their legal capacity, maybe if you have people that can share their experience, it can convince decision maker, and public opinion, that change need to be occurred to let people have legal capacity. Next, collect data. Okay, this is some few questions that can help you to understand what are the data that we need to have. What are the causes of the problem? Okay, we need to analyze and to find out what are the causes of our problem. What are the main stakeholders? What are the influential parties to solve the problem? The person who have the last word. What are the decision-making process? Does it work like a commission that need to make a proposition to the parliament and then send it to the ministry and then come back to the parliament and then to go back for the second chamber, for example? How does it work? The decision, the solution, or the change we need to have, how does it work to have it? And because it's very important to target each step of this decision process. Next. Okay. Why we need this data also is to confront the opinion and the argument to the contrary of the contrary. What does it mean? If you need to change a situation, it means that the situation is already here, is already there. So this situation existing now is based on some argument, some idea that have been created previously. So we need to have what are these arguments, what are these ideas to have the capacity to make them to prove they are wrong and things change and the reality change. So we need to have data to prove this. Also change the focus on the problem. Sometimes the problem is people analyze the problem as is caused by the person with disability itself. For example, we will say, and I will take a concrete example, the inclusion of persons with disability in a regular school is because children with disability are not able to be included because they have a high level of support. Okay, how we can change this? How we can change the focus of the problem? Maybe we can change it to say, okay, the schools are not enough accessible for children with disability, and we can prove it by collecting the data. How many money, how many dollar, dinar, euro you are putting for inclusive education? Do you have in your system support person for education for children with disability? Okay, how you can say that children are not able to be included if we are not having yet the system to prove it wrong? Support the successful action and program. If you have data that proves that there is something works in our country for inclusion of persons with disability, having data will prove it works. So we need to comfort it. We need to highlight it. But also having data will allow us to have a revision of the inaccessible strategy or program. Sometimes people think it's good or it's enough, or our policy is fine because people are enjoying their rights. For example, I will take the same example. Having people in special schools or institutions is fine because they enjoy their right of education. Okay, but if you see, for example, the general comment of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disability, we will say, no, it's not right. It's not enjoying their right of education because they are excluded from inclusive education. All of this can be done by collecting the right data. Next, the target. This is usually the people that we need to influence, the people that have the last decision-making process power, or people that interact with the decision-making process. It's also knowing and determine the influence, the ministry, parliamentary, how they think about our subject. The main and direct target, for example, the minister has the power to change the law or to change the decree. We need to find the main and direct people to influence, or people have the power to change. But also we need to find who has to find the secondary target. People that have an influence of our cause, of our problem, but they are not the decision makers. For example, the chief of the office of the minister, he has a very, very important role to play, to propose to the minister, for example, or to open the door of the minister. We need to find it and to find out how we can reach also this person. We need to develop a map or a diagram of power. Maybe the degree is going from top down to the top up, how the map works, how the power is related. For example, a president of political parties have a secondary role. He can influence the minister. Sometimes in some country, the political party have more power than the ministry in itself. So maybe we can target the political party directly. Next. It's the same idea, so in this slide, so I will try to go just very, very quick. One of the ideas that we need to have about the decision-making process is the opinion, the first idea, the opinion of this person, of this commission, of the people that constitute this commission about our subject. For example, what is the idea of the Ministry of Education about inclusive education? What is the idea of the Ministry of Social Affairs about social protection for people with disabilities? Do they have an opinion about this? Where we can find it? In media, in interviews, or maybe in direct, like in the program of the political parties. So we need to have all of this idea to find the correct word that we will use and the correct argument that we will use. Is it against our idea in the first place? Do we have ever like hear this person or this entity or institution being against our change? But also we need to have to find this person, also to have how we can interact, how we can enter in contact with this person. Maybe one of us, one of our team, our ally, have a direct relationship with this person through his relatives, wife, cousin, have a personal relationship with this person, have a personal link with this person. It sometimes works because it's easier to work and to discuss with the person than with the minister, to the minister. To discuss with the person is easier in the coffee in the house of this person than rather than discuss with him in the office of the ministry. Sometimes it's easier and we can have personal relationship with this person. So next, who are the stakeholders? In our different subject or campaign or advocacy campaign, there is a lot of stakeholders. During the planning of the campaign, it is necessary to determine the stakeholders. Education, for example, if I ask you what are the stakeholders of education, you can find, for example, is another organization that work for education, UNICEF working for the education, parents, an organization of parents, the labor group that work for education. All of this are stakeholders to the related to our problem and positive change. People influenced this by the cause. So are they only children with disability? If we, for example, target the amelioration of education, there is also a lot of other people influenced by our cause, other children, other parents, people who can influence the cause. For example, UNICEF or international donors, they have a program about education in our country. They probably have power to influence of our cause. Also, the direct influential party, as always, the decision-making part. and also the direct influence part, which make it possible to reach the decision-making part. As I said, for example, if it's the ministry or the minister of education, you can also think about the people that work closely with this minister. For example, if you have a, a very powerful organization of parents, they can probably influence the minister. So we need also to find who are the stakeholders. Next, what kind of change we will need? It depends on our target. If we target, for example, an institution, a government, a minister, the system, I can resume it as if you target a system. So the change we will require can be called a modification of a policy. We need to modify a policy, which is modification of a system. But if we need to change or modify a person, the position of a person, or it's an individual that we need to influence. So the change we will need is a change of attitude, of vision, of behavior. Sometimes the policy is here, the law is here, the budget is here, but it doesn't work. Why? Because a person is not really keen to work in our subject, or creating some problem, or creating some barriers for realization of this policy. So we need to work with this person to change his vision, his behavior, and his attitude about our subject. It's very key to understand what are we targeting. Sometimes, and most of the time, it's mixed between both. It's a mix between both, way. Next, important of analyzing the position of the stakeholders or different target actors. So it's very important to find if the stakeholders that we already find, are they ally or opponent of the modification or the positive change we want? Are they keen to help us or to focus for another problem? We need to focus on them to maximize the impact. We need also to find the specific influence strategy adapted to each actor. I will see that after what are the different strategies we can work on. Focus our resource and means to maximize the efficiency is not very we need to have, because we have limited resource, money, and limited human resource. We need to make them very efficient. So we need to be very clear in our target and our activities. In what kind of activity we will put some budget, which actors or which people will go to this one, and to have a very clear idea about our resources. Next, how we can analyze the different stakeholders. First of all, conduct a brainstorming about all the stakeholders that we think they interact or have link about our cause, about our problem. We need to have the longest and most exhaustive list. Then be creative. Maybe sometimes people that you don't think that have direct impact in our cause, but in a way or another, they have an impact. They have a link about our cause. If I give an example, for example, if you work on social protection, or for example, like support devices, or sometimes we forget that there is some private company that build these devices. Maybe we can also go with them and think about them. Did they really want to have a social protection, program that will influence their business? So we need to be creative. Organize them in a group according to their position and common interests. We need to create a table. Are they opponent? Are they ally? Are they, neutral? Do they have interest about our code? If we want to change, they will or positively impact them. We need to have this table to find out how we can make a strategy. Next, why it is important. Some are neutral or potential allies. Some are neutral or adversary or opponent. Some are hesitant, but all of them have an influence of our cause. All of them can impact our advocacy campaign. For example, imagine that we have spent many years working in to have social protection that they can charge a reduced price for support devices. And then we have the lobby of the private company come and speak with the parliament, and it will destroy all your work. So you need to have the clear map and to work with them to have, to find a different way of working. So all of these different stakeholders have, in one way or another, an impact or an influence power. Step 2 in our analyze. Now next, okay, yeah, perfect. Okay, so now the nature of the stakeholders, their views of the causes. Are they unconditional support? It means they will support you, or they will not support you, or they will support you but not so much, or they will be very opponent to our cause and will create trouble with you. Is the core important for them? Is it very important or not very important? Or you need also to understand their power of influence. Is it large? Do they have large power of influence, or limited power, or very limited power? If you have, for example, an opponent that is very limited power, so maybe it's not very, you don't need to spend money and time to reduce the power of this opponent, because from the beginning, he does not have a lot of power. Okay, step 3, organize the result. As I said, next, sorry. Okay, as I said, you need to make them in the table. So according to their position and according to their interest. And we need to create this table to make sure with whom you will work and with whom you need to have an impact to reduce their influence. Okay, next, the possibility to influence the allies. Build an alliance with an ally with power. So, influence neutral party and opponent to accept your opinion. You need also to have some strategy to influence neutral allies or stakeholders or opponent to make them accept your opinion. Sometimes the goal to an opponent to make them just neutral, not interfere with your work. Make allies aware of the importance of the cause that you are trying to defend. So some allies that they don't understand why it's important to work with you in your advocacy campaign. Reinforce the capacity of the least influential ally. Sometimes you have some people or some organizations or some allies that don't have a lot of capacity. So if you have the power, if you have money, budget, and capacity to build their capacity, it's very good to work on this. And then decrease the influence of the most influential opponent. How we can do it? So maybe create some ideas to reduce the influence of your opponent to make them less influential to the decision makers. Which strategy you can use? Next, sorry, yeah. Which strategy you can use to make all of this? You can use the intellectual orientation. So base it on logic, base it on research, information, studies, scholars' work. You can also work in cooperative, based on common interest. For example, okay, we need to work on this. I have a funder that I can apply for a project Do you want to have to work with this project with me? We can have funds together. We can have to submit a project together. We will have, for example, for private company, your gain will increase because we'll have some more social protection, and the state will, support people to pay the devices that you are selling. Legal also legal orientation or legal strategy. For example, if an opponent is using not legal strategy or illegal ways to work, so maybe to seek the legal basis. Okay, this person or this organization is not respecting the law. And political orientation, insist in the political causes related to the issues. You can also provide some argument that is very pure political argument. The problem can be solved not by the law, only by changing the position of the person, of the decision makers. All of these are ways to influence allies, but also the decision makers. Next. Documents that are needed to develop for your campaign. So, developing main messages. You need to have a document that you will put all the key messages you need to work on. Brief presentation of the campaign policy. Why? Because you need to have funds. So this brief presentation will support you to go to funders and to go to people to seek some resource, but also to seek allies. We are working for social protection because of this, and we're working like this. And having a brief presentation will help you to have quick allies and also easier to have funds and resources. Detailed report about the campaign policy. If the funder, the allies want more details, you have already prepared this. So we have a report that have a detailed, it's a detailed report about the campaign. And then research and studies on the cause. We are defending inclusive education because research and study shows this data, shows this impact. And then we have, like we call authority, like an authority argument. So we need to have all this document. Next. Now we will work on the message. The main component of the message. Targeted context, content and idea, the argument, use it to convince. What are the messages you will use? What are the key arguments that you will use to convince? The language and the term used. For example, if you have a second language in your country, is it like better to use the second language or to use your first language? For example, in Tunisia, we have the French language is our second language. But when we write a message or when you speak to media, it's not very well seen if you speak French. It's better to speak Arabic, and Tunisian Arabic is more better because you're not an elite person. So sometimes it's very great to find what are your language, the language you will use and the term that you will use. For example, imagine that you are defending the cause of person with disabilities, and you will use in media or with people with special needs, or people that have problems, or people suffering from disabilities. Terminology and word is very important. So you need also to use very correct words. The form. So what kind of form that you use to transfer your message or to share your message? Is it a letter, a meeting, advertisement, or a radio station, a music, a song, a short movie? All of this is also a way to think about it. The correct and adequate space, time and space. What is the best time to present your message or your letter? What are the correct place to present the message? For example, if there is an election, an election process, maybe it's very good to take this opportunity to present your messages. And imagine, as an example, I always say, imagine that you are working for people, for person with disability that live in poverty, and you make your conference in 5 stars hotels. Is it really like credible that you are working on this? It's very, very important to define also the message, the place and the correct time. For example, if your country, and it's happening in Tunisia sometimes, we have a tourist attack. It's not very it's not the moment to work on something like very specific on disability. Sometimes because the country is not the correct time in this, because something very sad happening. So sometimes it's very important to choose the correct moment and place. Sorry. Next. The characteristic of a good message. Explain the essence of the problem. We don't need to go like sentences and metaphors and examples and blah, blah, blah. No, you need to explain very quick, very strict, and very clear what is the problem. It needs to be clear the problem is this thing. And the emotional and in addition to the intellectual effect. So, as I said, you need to target both sides of the brain. You need to target the intellectual side of the brain of the decision maker, of the public opinion, but also the emotion of this. One of the examples, I don't know if you know it, but it's happening in the US when they wanted to make the law, the American Disability Act, when like media shows a little girl like trying to go from the stairs without his wheelchair, and all the media make this picture of a little girl going to the Congress without her chair and claim and go to the stairs. It had a very, very important impact. So the law was one of the sides with the intellectual, with the argument. These images also helped that the law have been adopted. Focus on awareness, interest, and motivation to act. You don't need when you spend or when you sell your messages to focus only on problem. This is a problem, it's very sad, blah, blah, blah. So you need also to focus on some key messages that will push people to join your advocacy campaign, to have awareness about the problem, to find interest that if the change occur, they will gain something. People with disability, people without disability. If a social protection program change, it will change for all, not only for person with disability. Everybody will gain something. Next, the argument. How to organize it. Submit the problem. When you present your argument or when you organize it, first of all, you need to submit the problem. This is the problem. Present the preferred solution. What are we proposing and why we are proposing this? Bring the argument. Why we are proposing this. Present how to reach the goal, the how. What is expected from the target party? What do we need that he change his decree? For example, if the target party have the power to change, what are we requesting directly? It's not enough to make, to highlight the problem and the solution. We also need, when we present our letter, our message, to say, okay, we need from you to change this article from this law. We need from you to increase the budget line of this part of your budget. We need from you to increase or to to have more employers in this structure or in this public institution. There to be clear in what we are requesting. Next, the argument. How to elaborate it. Analyze of the problem based on the summaries of the previous steps. All that we have been seeing from the beginning of this presentation will support us to analyze the problem. Integrate the ideology, the political and psychological determinant of the target parties. If the target parties have, for example, a liberal ideology, okay, maybe you can customize or make a makeup of our argument to have economic part of this, a gain of economy. If our target or decision makers have like a more social approach, a more how to say it, more social approach about this, not liberal. Like maybe we can also make a makeup of our argument to say, okay, it's the same change, it's the same problem, it's the same solution we propose, but we change the way to present it to make it more taking into account the political ideology, the psychological ideology of the target group. Okay, what opinion the subject they have about the subject, and maybe we also, if you have the idea about what they think about the subject, about the change we are requesting, maybe also making clear that the idea is wrong because of this argument. Or if they are supporting, say for example in interview 2 years ago saying that the system needs to be changed, maybe you can code this interview and make it like clear in our letter to send to him. Mr. Minister, we remind you, and we are very happy that in 2014 you said and you code and you push it to be like more to respect his promises. Next, mobilization of resource. It is a decisive step to translate the objectives into a reality. Human resource, experts, volunteers. If you know the problem, you know the solution, but you need experts to support you. Sometimes you can find experts that will work with you because they believe in your cause. Sometimes you need some money to pay a consultant. But a personal recommendation, it's always very bad to let the consultant make the work only by itself. You need to work with the consultant because you need also to become the expert of the solution. The expert and the consultant will be here and will disappear after. If you want him again, you need to pay him again. So if you have a consultant opportunity to have a consultant with you, work with him to become an expert of the subject. Volunteers, maybe some people they are not very technical, but you need these people to go to go to the people to share papers, to print papers, to have call phones, all of this kind of thing. You need all the people, you need all the resources. Everybody is important in a campaign. It's not because you need to have only experts. From all person in our campaign is important. Financial and material means. So where and from who you can have your equipment, your finance, your supply, all your money. Why is very important. If you find all of the things and you analyze them, you can avoid the risk to have some influence about your independence. Sometimes, some political party will come to you and say, okay, we will support your campaign and we will give you money and we will give you offices. But if you go of this, you will support our political party. It's very dangerous. Sometimes it works like this in some countries. It's very important to have this analysis. Next, how you can find, yes, this one. Thank you. So how you can like customize your messages? If you speak with experts, scholars, people like make studies, sometimes it's very good to have rational arguments. So to have a rational argument, you need to have studies. You need to have research papers. If you speak about with political people, with political parties, you need to have like a midway between rational and emotion argument. So you need to have like publication, Facebook publication, Twitter publication, like Instagram publication, media publication, all of this kind of thing. It works with political party. If you want to speak with the most public opinion, to have the most sympathy about your movement or campaign, you need to create slogan. You need to have a simple message and slogans. Everybody remember nothing about us without us, because it's a very simple, clear, and key slogan. Even we don't know how the CRPD ad hoc committee make its work and all of this kind of thing, but we remember the slogan. This is the impact for public opinion. Next, build alliance. It's one of the most decisive steps. This is some question that can help you. Why do we need alliance? Do we have the capacity to do all the work only by ourselves? With whom and why? Do we need, for example, to have a private company with us in our campaign? Do we need to have the UNICEF, the UNESCO, the OHSR with us? Why do we need them? What organization to ensure what organization to ensure a flexible and participatory approach and horizontal decision leadership? We need to have someone that an organization like will play an horizontal leadership, because no organization will accept to be less important than another. So when you create an alliance, we need to have a participatory approach. We need to have an horizontal leadership. We don't have a boss. There is no boss in our movement, in our alliance. All of us we are the bosses, because the cause or the change we want will impact all of us. One recommendation, it's very important, is to establish a charter between the different parts of the alliance. The charter will put the common value, the objective, the principle of work, and the method of the decision. Having this charter will avoid all different problems. And the last thing is execution. Strategic plan, the execution of the strategic plan of the advocacy campaign. So execute the action plan, execute all planned activities to achieve the expected results. What action, who does it, how, when, with, what means, and what are the indicators. As you can see, here is only the questions. Because as I said from the beginning, there is no miracle receipt, or there is no magic receipt, or a receipt that works for all contexts. You need to work to answer this question depending in your analysis and your data, your context, your resource, your power, your knowledge. You need to have all of this question answered to achieve your results. You need to create your own plan, but it's very important to follow some key steps as shown during the presentation. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope it was clear, since English is my third language. So I'm really waiting for your questions, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Imed. Really interesting, I think. So now we start also the debate.
Sorry, it takes a little bit longer, but I thought that it was really worth to continue with the whole presentation of Imed. After starting the debate, I would like to invite the audience to take the floor and not just making questions. Of course, you can make questions, but also sharing maybe some experiences that you have at local level or some practices that you implemented at local level. And firstly, I would like to start, Imed, with just one question. I would like to make a question because hearing you talking about this advocacy, how to make an advocacy campaign, advocacy program, I was thinking about, of course, bridging the gap. And you know that one of our objectives is empowering the organizations of persons with disabilities at local level, also from the point of view of the advocacy, making advocacy programs. And I'm thinking about, especially, the situation in countries, it's really different from every country. So I'm thinking about countries that already have, for example, focal points dedicated on disabilities, or arrive, for example, like we work in Paraguay, and in Paraguay there is a ministry focused on disability. So in these cases, I think that it's different when you have a focal point to make an advocacy program, because maybe you can be supported by this focal point, or in the case of Paraguay, you have a ministry that can support you in having this, creating an advocacy campaign. So in the cases that, for example, in countries we don't have a focal point or public entities focused on disability that can support our advocacy program, how is the best way to act? Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you for your question. It's very important, interesting question, because, as you said, it depends on the context. Some is very easier when you have a focal point, when you have an entity. For as example, in our campaign for the Tunisian Charter, the two first point is to create this focal point, one from the executive bodies and the other one from the parliament, because it makes it easier. But if you don't have this focal point, how does it work? You need to find a champion, what we call a champion. A champion is someone have a certain power but believe in your causes. If you create a champion, if you have, like, for example, one minister or one political person or one person that believe in your causes, and you make him champion, you speak for yourself, but this champion will support you to create some impact. Another idea is to work, first of all, of the systematic change. As I said, sometimes there's a mix between people that don't like or don't know how to make the positive change, but sometimes the problem is from the system. You can work to make the change happening by, first of all, make the harmonization between your law, and the CRPD, because, as I remind, because Article 33 say it clear that any country need to make a focal point from different ministries and different level of the country to have focal points to support the implementation of the CRPD, and also have a coordination body that support also the monitoring of the CRPD. Maybe one of the starting points is to create this one, because there is a legal obligation for these countries. Maybe it's one of the idea. If your country does not having ratified the CRPD yet, maybe the first advocacy campaign you need to do is pushing your country to ratify the CRPD, and then have other things. This is the idea. I hope I answered.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to add another comment, even a more difficult situation connected to this argument that we are talking now. And participants ask and how to advocate in countries in which freedom of speech is restricted. So even hard the challenge. It's harder.
Perfect point. Before 2011, Tunisia was a dictatorship. We were under a great dictatorship. How we worked? We worked by saying, we are not here to be against your program or against your regime. We are here to support your regime to become more beautiful, more how to say, more friendly, funder friendly, international funder friendly. Like, so we are here not because the problem is not because of you, because there is a lot of things that we can adjust, and we are here to support you. We are not opponent against you. We are here to support you and to support how you can do a better job. And it's a different. As I said, there is a different political approach and orientation to influence. As you say in the presentation I demonstrate, there is a legal one to say, okay, here there is your legal representation. This is your legal obligation. But there is also one other argument, a common interest. Mr. I don't know, Minister, Parliament. Okay, you want to have more, fund from USAID, maybe to have more funds from the French cooperation, the international cooperation. Okay, we have Article 32 of the CRPD. They say all the obligation, all the international cooperation needs to take into account persons with disabilities. Now, most of the international agencies take into consideration persons with disability. So what we want from you, we are here to support you to write and have more funds because you are respecting the CRPD. I know it's very complicated. I know it's very political, but as I said, choose your terms, choose your words and your messages. You can, as I say, make a makeup. The problem is not, is not from because the politics. The problem is because of funds. Maybe if we know that the problem is politics, is also how you can choose the correct word, don't have trouble. But also use also the soft power. The UN system. The UN system have the obligation to have, if you say, I want to report something and I want to be protected, anonymous. I want to be anonymous. The UN system have the obligation to make it like this, and also go directly to the funders. Okay, we want you to create this project for our countries, but you have the obligation because the CRPD Article 32 and Article 4 say this. So you can influence the decision making without even speaking about freedom of speech. We are speaking about social protection. As I always say, no one will be against persons with disabilities. It's too rushed to say, no, I'm against the rights of persons with disability. They only will say, we don't have budget, we don't know how to do it. So only answer this one. We are not speaking about rights. We are speaking about funder, budget, policy, even it's not the total truth. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. Thank you. I hope I answered.
I think it's really difficult indeed. I'm receiving a lot of messages because you know, as you know, Imed, we have connected today, but as usual to our webinars, people from all around the world, from really different countries, and indeed I'm receiving a lot of comments and questions with the cases in which it's the government or the focal points that block the conversation with the civil society organization or DPOs. They don't include them in the table of discussion. So this is, I think, it's a really common problem from the audience that we have today, because I'm really receiving a lot of comments about it. So I don't know if you have any other comments about it, or just maybe I can ask you to, if you, I don't know, share some other experience from other countries. You are also an activist, or maybe I'm thinking, for example, now if you know if there are some projects or some project in which we can find some aggregation of good practices of advocacy campaigns and program, or a platform in which our participants can go and share experience or find some good practices on successful advocacy campaign.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Just first of all, I want to come back about not being in the table of negotiation and having people like block the conversation of the participation approach. One is now we have the CRPD, and the CRPD says clear, like Article 4.3 says all the things concern person with disability need to be shared and have the opinion of person with disability. This is a legal argument. Okay, so we need to have like to put if for example we make the analysis of the problem and you find the problem is the first step of your problem is the person and that supposed to support the implementation of the security is the problem. So maybe your first campaign or advocacy campaign is to reduce or to have like a more friendly relationship, especially if your country is in very very dangerous political situation that you cannot like critique, you don't have freedom of speech. Okay, maybe you can make an approach like we are friends with you, Mr. Decision Maker or Mrs. Decision Maker. So what we want is to become friends with you. We can support you to make your better job. So we don't block our work. Is the case, for example, in some Arab country when we have the commission, which is the commission is the problem. And we try to make it like, okay, we have some people, our people, the people that understand the CRPD here. But also sometimes maybe we need to remove all stereotypes about these people. Maybe they don't know the CRPD. Maybe they are just here because they are good in politics. They are not good in human rights, and they are not good. They think they are doing well. Maybe start by a program by building their capacity, and the change will occur without even like working to modify them. Okay, we are here to make you a training program for you and for your team, and this is a more soft approach, not to be a confront approach, but we are here to support you to understand more the CRPD. We have international experts that they can come. And it was exactly what we did. And when during the Tunisian election, the first step, political instability sometimes is very good, but the problem is everything going so fast. So what we did is we bring people from international level because our countries, especially in developing country, we love international experts, and we go and told them, so we have international experts, all of them will come. So we say, okay, we have international experts, they will come and explain to you how to make election for people with disability, inclusive for people with disability. So all the institutions come, all the political parties came, and everything went well. And this is the kind of thing that you can use. Another program also is sometimes easier to work in economic and social program than political program in our country when there is a political problem. So there is a lot of program that funded by the European Union, for example, for the USAID, that target the amelioration or the improvement of the situation of population. Here, maybe it's your gateway, like you can enter to make an advocacy with your government by making a participatory approach with directly the funders, because funders have an obligation also to support the participatory, because the democracy is like this. I hope I answered some of the questions. I know it's very complicated. As I say, there is no miracle recipe. This is my key messages. Really, it depends on the context. It depends on people here. As I said, if you do, if you come back of the presentation, it's probably the one person. Maybe you need to work on his vision, behavior, attitude, in one way or another. Have common interest. Have like, I will say something like maybe it's not politically correct, but for example, it was one of our idea we know that the parliament in Tunisia don't need our money. But what we say, what we propose to them, doesn't work yet because we don't have fund, is to send them to the parliament, European Parliament, because in the European Parliament, I think they have something about disability rights, person with disability rights. It's not about like making them, really understand, but it's just to have them common interest. We pay you the travel to go to Europe, to meet, to have your political agenda, and we will become friends with you, so we can influence you better, easier, because we paid your travel. Sometimes it's a little bit like very direct thinking, but it's advocacy like this.
Yes, exactly. I agree with you, Imed. Thank you very much. I would like to just give the floor for the last question. Christelle Jurillo, she raised also her hand, but she wrote a question. How can we appeal to emotions without perpetuating feelings of pity? I would like to give the floor to her just to explain a little bit better the question. I give you the floor, Christelle. You can talk.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, of course, very well.
Yes, hi. This is Crystal Joylo from UNICEF Disability Section. So I was wondering, because you were saying that we need to appeal to emotions, but I've had this experience before from advocacy campaigns where some stakeholders say that we shouldn't, for example, show children in wheelchairs that are not getting into schools because it's not accessible, and it can create these feelings of pity among the public and decision makers, and that could be perceived as negative. And I was wondering maybe if best practices, for example, could be as impactful, or any reflections you have around this would be interesting to hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. And it was really one of the challenges we faced and is always facing, because let's be clear, we need both. So we cannot like say we don't need emotion. We need both, the intellectual part and the emotional part. One of the good practices we find is to have the emotion without like showing people directly, like showing pictures, how to say caricature, caricatures, or Alicia, can you help me?
Sorry, again.
I need to find the word caricature. Yeah. Some pictures like highlighting the problem without making picture of real people. Sometimes we also need to have only code, because in emotion we have different steps. Picture have more impact on the people. If you like, I totally agree, when you show like children in wheelchair, a picture of a real children in wheelchair is like 100% pity. But if you have this picture and then a key message behind the picture, I'm not lonely, I will have 50% of my people like me does not access school, blah blah blah. You have like data, we have emotion. Is not like showing the reality. The thing is trying to put the emotion as showing the reality. It's not the poor guy or the poor girl. Is what we are discussing here with our number, with our data, with all our technical words. How this is how it come in reality. For example, code experience of people is very positive, because they choose the word they want. We are not here to show their pictures. They have chose their own word to express what they are facing. Having video with people that know how to explain the problem they are facing is not it's create emotion without 100% pity. There is a little part always of pity, but the key message is to reach the goal. Is a balance between both. I hope I answered. I know it's very challenging to have this kind of balance, but it's always not good to say like to show a picture, only a picture of a child in front of school and saying poor, and with the legend saying this child cannot access the school. Yeah, but what is the key message here? You know.
Thank you very much, Imed. Really clear. I think your whole presentation was really clear. I also received several comments to just congrats with you about this session. And so, well, we arrive at the end. So we'd like to thank you, Imed, again a lot for your participation and for all the session that you hosted with us, and for having dedicated your time today. I also would like to thank you a lot. Thank you a lot. Our audience, always really attentive. And I would like to inform you that we arrive, as you know, we last just the last two sessions. That will be women with disability, and the last one will be about social protection and livelihood. So these two, we will provide these last two sessions before the Christmas break. So it means end of October, women and disability, and the end of November, social protection and livelihoods. We will come back to you soon, absolutely soon, with further information about these two sessions, dates and timing. So for the moment, thank you very much again. Don't stop to follow us through our communication channels that you find now in the chat box. Someone asked me about the previous sessions. You can find the previous sessions on our YouTube channels that you find the link always in the chat box here under. So, well, thanks again. See you next time. Have a nice afternoon and a nice day. So thank you, Imed, again, and next time. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you very much, and goodbye to everybody.